Hey everyone, welcome to Movie Marathons HQ, where we do movie marathons connected to new releases and where we enjoy and review some of our favorite movies. This video is part of the Spider-Man Brand New Day movie marathon and also part of the Avengers Doomsday Movie Marathon. We are watching one movie every week as we prepare for the release of Spider-Man Brand New Day in July 2026 and Avengers Doomsday in December 2026. Today we are discussing Venom. Released in 2018 and directed by Ruben Fleischer, this is the first in kind of a spin-off universe created by Sony. It was at one time officially called the Spunk, the Sony Pictures universe of Marvel characters. I don't know why a bunch of suits sat in a room and decided that was the final name for this thing, but it started with Venom, and they had some Venom sequels and a few other movies that were kind of connected, but they were separate from what Sony was doing with the Spider-Man character, as that character, though owned by Sony, was sort of lent out or leased out to Marvel Studios to appear in some Avengers movies and in the Tom Holland Spider-Man trilogy, which continues in Spider-Man Brand New Day. So this is kind of its own thing and also the first live-action introduction to the character. Overall, I do not like this movie at all. When I first saw it in theaters, I didn't like it, but I thought there were a few things that were okay about it. In this rewatch, I really struggled to find a single thing that I like about it. I do like Venom in the comics. He's not my favorite character, and he's sort of the anti-hero. He's called the Lethal Protector, but I feel like in this movie it just missed a lot. Maybe there are people out there that like this movie, but I'm not one of those people. For positives, I would mention the visual effects, and that's it. For negatives, I would mention the characters, characterization, and character work, the concept of this movie, and the inescapable feeling of the Spider-Man void. And spoilers for the Venom movie. The only positive for me to mention are the visual effects. They're not that good, but they are fairly good. The premise is that there's this alien symbiote that's kind of a mucky, slimy goo thing, and it looks good. When it's moving on its own, it's weird, but it looks sticky and globby, so I guess that's good. When Venom takes over Eddie Brock, played by Tom Hardy, the tendrils that come off of Venom look good. They feel like they fit in the world and kind of obey physics mostly. I think when Eddie Brock becomes Venom, I think it generally looks good. That being said, I don't like the look of Venom. I think he works in the comics when you draw him, but when you try to make him into proportions that fit in the real world, it just seems like he's got this tiny little beady head because they make the white eyes so big and the toothed mouth so big. It just feels like he has a tiny head. I also don't like that he looks wet all of the time. So yeah, the CGI looked good, but I don't like the end result. Oh, and there's one scene where Eddie Brock is being chased through the city on a motorcycle, and there's to me some very obvious green screen elements that didn't fit the scene very well. So that's the only positive, because there are some good things to say. So now for negatives. Having Tom Hardy in the movie is close to being a positive because he's very talented and he's a very good actor. I don't like at all what he does here. I feel like it is sort of entertaining to see him just be a wild man when Eddie Brock is losing his mind, but I don't like how the character is portrayed. As I've reflected on this, I think the character of Eddie Brock is supposed to be very self-centered, and when he goes onto his girlfriend's computer and reads her emails and then uses it to further his own work, even though that sabotages her and gets her fired, I get that he's supposed to be very self-centered, but that was just a very deplorable thing to do, and it made me dislike the character from the beginning. I don't think he got a redemption. I think the point of the filmmakers was he's very self-centered, he gets bonded with Venom, and Venom is very much we, our, us. So then Eddie has to kind of move outside of himself and share his ego with another being in his body. And it's kind of like a body horror, and isn't this crazy, he's being taken over by this parasite thing. I just think he's an unlikable character. And then there's Riz Ahmed, who plays the bad guy, and I like Riz Ahmed, but his bad guy doesn't seem like he believes in what he's doing. Um, there's some other supporting characters that try some stuff, but I just don't like anybody, and I'm not rooting for anybody throughout this whole movie. And then Venom is supposed to be a separate character, and so they have Tom Hardy do this kind of alien crazy voice, and it is annoying to me. I don't like the Venom voice, and some of the banter back and forth is cheesy and hokey, and I just didn't like much of what they did with any of the characters, especially the main character, so that's a negative. I forgot to mention Michelle Williams, who is the love interest to Eddie Brock, and she's good for what she's given. But again, that's another character that I think doesn't really. Maybe she probably works the best, to be honest, and to be fair. She probably works the best of all the characters, which is probably a tribute to Michelle, but otherwise, still, the character work leaves lots to be desired. The next negative is just the concept of this movie. When this movie came out in 2018, Sony owns the character Spider-Man. They don't just own the film rights to portray Spider-Man on screen, they own the character. But they had made a deal to have the Spider-Man character appear in Marvel Studios' produced movies and to share producing responsibilities on a Spider-Man trilogy with Tom Holland. But since they had the characters, they also decided to open up a new universe of Spider-Man based characters without Spider-Man. But that this movie is the beginning of this bump. And so I just think from the beginning, having a character of Spider-Man, having a universe of Spider-Man characters without Spider-Man is just not going to work. And then the concept of this movie is let's make Eddie Brock and explore him, and then he's trying to save the world because more symbiotes are coming. It just feels unfulfilling to me as a story. It doesn't feel like there's enough there to actually warrant telling the story. And then it culminates in Eddie Brock and Venom are fighting another dude with another symbiote that's pretty much the same color, but that one's scarier because I guess he's more creative with what he can do with the power. So it's just a fight at nighttime on a rocket with a black monster and a dark gray monster. And it's just hard to see what's happening. And I just think the concept of this movie was off from the beginning. I don't think there's much that could have been done to make a better Venom. Well, they could have made a better Venom movie, but a better conceived Venom movie. I don't think there's much you can do here. So I think the concept is just off. And then the last negative builds on everything else, but it's just the void of Spider-Man. As I said in the comics, Spider-Man first comes in contact with the Venom symbiote on Battle World in the Secret Wars comic run from many decades ago. He comes back with this black suit, and then this symbiote is kind of doing interesting things with his psyche, and he eventually rejects it. The symbiote then attaches to Eddie Brock, who's a rival photographer, journalist guy in New York, to Peter Parker, and then that symbiosis works, and so he becomes the anti-hero Venom. Even in the comics, the design for Venom, as you can see in my shirt, is Spider-Man spider-coated. And so when you have a movie that is based on a character so connected to Spider-Man in the comics, but then they make a movie where they remove all that, I just think you feel like, when is Spider-Man going to show up in this thing? Even placing this movie in San Francisco instead of New York City, I see what they were going for. They thought if he's in New York, it'll feel even more like Spider-Man is missing. So they thought, let's move him to San Francisco, which is kind of an interesting place. But for me, I still felt the missing Spider-Man element throughout this whole thing. So I think just the character work and the concept of this movie, and then the missing Spider-Man element, just leads all into a massive negative for me, unfortunately. Now, how might Venom connect to Spider-Man Brand New Day? I don't think there's going to be a huge connection on the surface. Tom Hardy is not on the cast list for Brand New Day. And this movie is only in this movie marathon because part of the Venom symbiote was left in the MCU after No Way Home. So I think that we'll be getting a black suit Spider-Man at some point. It could be in Brand New Day. There are a few things in the first trailer for Brand New Day that suggest maybe a black suit Spider-Man metamorphosis is happening. But it could be that the black suit attaches to our Spider-Man in Doomsday or Secret Wars. But there is a chance it does that in Brand New Day based on some of the Easter eggs in the trailer, but I guess we'll see when the movie comes out. Now, how might Venom connect to Avengers Doomsday? Tom Hardy is not on the cast list, and none of the actors in this movie are on the cast list for Avengers Doomsday, and I don't think there will be much connection. However, in the comics, the Venom symbiote first attached to Spider-Man in the Secret Wars storyline, so I don't think it's necessarily going to be in Doomsday, but I think if there is a black suit Spider-Man, it will probably come from Avengers Secret Wars. There's also a chance that it comes in Spider-Man Brand New Day, as some of the Easter eggs in the first Brand New Day trailer suggest that maybe a black suit Spider-Man is coming, and that even part of the metamorphosis that we see is because of this symbiote relationship. So that's my review of Venom. What do you think of this movie, and how do you think it might connect to Spider-Man Brand New Day or Avengers Doomsday? Make sure to let me know in the comments below. Follow Movie Marathons HQ on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, and also on Letterboxd, where you can see all of the movie marathons we have going on, including the newly announced Toy Story 5 movie marathon. The next movie in this marathon is The Punisher: One Last Kill. It will be a non-spoiler review, and then a few weeks later I will do a spoiler review. See you at the movies!